So the reason that I want to talk to you is because it basically of your amazing energy and all that like that you bring to everything that I've seen on in your communities, and understanding that of course we have different communities and it's speaking to writers and artists, but I actually was really like watching so many of your videos and I was like, there's so much parallel with the people that you speak to, like coaches, because you were saying in one, and I thought this was amazing. You were like, coaches are here to like share love and light with the world. And I was like, oh my gosh, that is so similar to people who are here creating books, paintings, whatever. It's like built like from the inside and coming out. So
it's so true. It's so true. And so much of what, I think of what we do as coaches is writing. You know, like we're writing all the time, like Instagram posts, emails, like things for our clients. But, you know, the way that I have really done business is based off writing, you know, writing in my journal, writing to call in my most amazing clients. Everything has really been from the written word, and I resonate so much with writers and how much you can bring what's inside of your soul to life. So yes, I agree with that.
you do, and you do it so beautifully too. Like again, I feel like I could just like gobble up your everything that you put out into the world like all day. So I thought that we should start, because unlike some other people, we definitely don't really share much of a community except for the people that I've like rambled to you about you too. So I'm like, oh my God, there's this amazing woman. I'm such a freak. But so for the people who haven't heard that ramble, can you just start by telling who you are? And also really like, I would love to hear how you got to this place of just pure light, which it feels like you are.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Thank you so much for interviewing me and having me here and sharing so much with your community. So hello, everyone. My name is Ruby Lee. I'm from Australia and I'm an online business coach and a LinkedIn strategist. So it's almost strange to put a title to what I do. And I'm sure a lot of us can almost resonate with that. I find it really difficult to sometimes like put what I do into a title or into a box, if you like, but that's what I've decided to call myself. And there's layers around what has brought me to what I do today. And a lot of those layers are derived from a big spiritual journey, a big quest almost to finding what lit me up from the inside out. And I talk a lot about what is like your soul's joy, what brings you so much light in the world. So I guess what's brought me here and what has helped me really unleash that light from within has been, you know, I was just saying to you, Mackenzie, like so much inner work. And the inner work is really, for me, it's manifested in the form of writing. So, you know, writing, journaling every day. I have, my laptop is literally standing on 7 of my journals right now.
I love it.
I need to prop up this whole situation. Oh, well, there are my journals. So I journal every single day. I write to my community every single day. I will write to my friends even, you know, like especially during these times, I write, you know, big, long, old school letters and even big emails to express myself. So a lot of the light has been unleashed that way. And there's just been so many instances in this last 2 years in particular that has helped me really strip back to the core of who I am and helping me to be even more authentic, you know, every single day.
Wow. So I would love to hear like the moment that you decided that you wanted to go into coaching. Was that the first step that you made out of your 9 to 5 before?
Yes. So I had a side hustle going on, you know, I was always searching for something else outside of the day job to keep my creative mind going. Because so much of what I did was very process oriented. I was a recruiter, so there was always steps to take and all of that. So I was crying out for more creativity in my life. And it came out in the form of a side hustle, which was career coaching. You know, you kind of think, oh yeah, well, I was a recruiter, it makes sense. But it wasn't necessarily the career coaching that lit me up. It was the fact that I could create a brand, have a website, take some cool at-home brand photos and put that out to the world. I started off on YouTube to get my name out there. So making videos, that was all creative to me. So the coaching element came from that side hustle. But it wasn't until January 2018 that I went all in with this decision to start a business coaching practice. And yeah, that was crazy because I didn't really know how to business coach, controversial, but I did know how to start a side hustle and how to have a successful one. So in the time that I had my side hustle, I had built my income up to 6 figures. So not only was I having my day job, I managed to actually build a 6-figure side hustle over the course of 3 years. And so I knew I could teach other side hustlers how to do that. And from there, it evolved into a more advanced type of business coaching and helping coaches now scale online. So that was really the beginnings of it all. And I guess the next layer to that was the spiritual and intuitive level, which really didn't come to me until the end of 2018, when I was really faced with a lot of my own limiting beliefs and a lot of my own blocks around taking the brand, the business, everything to that next level. And, you know, I was wondering at one point, why is it so hard to do everything in my business? You know, getting visibility, getting clients, everything felt sticky, and it was just everything. It looked like everyone was having such a great time. It was so easy, but it was so hard for me. Lo and behold, I delved into a lot more spiritual work, and there were so many elements that, oh my gosh, I had hidden for years and years and years. So began the spiritual enlightenment.
Wow. Oh my gosh. And so did you expect, like, what prompted you to look into the spiritual realm? Was it like the earthly world was not providing you with what you were seeking, and so there had to be another way?
I think I've always been very attuned to the intuitive side and the spiritual aspect. Like even when I was a kid, I mean, I have so many stories. I used to like feel presence and see it. Like I could see things. And
really, what did you see? Can you explain it? Like, can you put that into words, or is that a difficult thing to?
Yeah, no, like I would have full on visions. Like sometimes I would walk past a certain room and I would see people, or I'd see animals or something, and I'm like, that's weird, you know. But as a child, it gets put down to imagination. Right. Oh, you've just got a great imagination. And you know, I think the world just tries to make sense of it and puts it down to that. But upon reflection now, I know how real it was. And my grandfather passed away when I was 9 years old, and I loved him. I remember sitting on his lap and he would be reading books to me. And he was actually a really heavy smoker. Like I'm talking old school cigars, you know, like that was just who he was. So when he passed away, I remember one night I could smell his smoke. I could smell it. And I'm like, oh, that smells like Granddad. And I remember saying to my mum, do you remember what Granddad smelled like? And she's like, oh yeah, he was always smoking. And I'm like, I think I smelt that last night. And Mum's always very attuned as well. She's like, oh, maybe he came to visit you last night. So it was, you know, those moments where it's like smell, sight, energy, you know, you can just sort of feel that. But I guess what brought me to discovering more of that in November 2018 was this real crossroads of something did not feel aligned. You know, I felt it's almost like I should have been very happy with where I was at, but I wasn't. I had a lot of external validation of what I was doing was right, but internally it didn't feel connected. And so I just began this path of, I know actually the moment was I had an Instagram story come up randomly, nothing's random, but the story came up and it was something along the lines of, are you feeling like there's something blocking you from that next level? And I responded to the story and I said, yes, I definitely feel that. I don't really ever do this, but I wrote this big thing to some Instagrammer who was a spiritual coach,
Yeah.
and she responded straight away and said, "Oh my gosh, do you want to jump on a call to talk about this more?" And I said, yes. Like, I'm not like usually like that.
Wow.
Anyway, turns out she ended up being my spiritual coach and still is. There's so much alignment.
Yeah.
And I think my coach really took me down this path of going through the shadow work, doing the hard inner stuff that it's hard because you don't want to dig all that stuff back up.
Mm-hmm.
And I had so much in my childhood, particularly to do with my father, that I was so in pain about, that I just almost forgot about it for a decade.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of that stuff came back up, and it was, oh my gosh, the best work I could have ever done, both for me and my soul, but also helping me unlock that next level so I could help more clients to do the same.
Yeah.
So yeah, that it really was answering an Instagram story of all things that led me down this path of real, spiritual renewal.
Mm-hmm. And what was it that was, let's say, blocked with respect, because you don't have to go into the personal if you don't want, but with your career, how were you finding that you were blocked, and what changed post this work?
Oh my gosh, I'm an open book. I will share everything.
Okay. I'm here for it if you're here.
So I had a lot of money beliefs that I didn't even know I picked up when I was a child. And it really derived from my dad being he was very unwell when it came to money. So much so he was addicted to gambling, and at a big scale, not just, some little raffle tickets. I'm talking like a lot of money on the table. And my mum, on the other hand, was always the amazing, loyal, diligent wife who would make up for it. So she worked super hard to make up for the losses we had. And I had this real like pendulum understanding of self-worth, money, relationships, and just almost like mixing up loyalty with standing up for your truth. And a lot of this got absorbed into my being, that it manifested in my business around not pricing myself the way that I really could have. When I was career coaching, I was writing resumes, which takes hours and hours, sometimes 4 hours, because you're researching someone's background, you're writing for them. For those of you that are freelance writers, like resume writing is like a whole level of boring, but like you really have to. Have you done it?
No, but that sounds really difficult. I think that would take me a long time just because of the nature of the interest level, let's say.
Yes, exactly. And you also want to be in their voice so that when someone's reading their resume, it feels like them. Yeah. Anyway, I used to spend 4 or 5 hours writing these resumes. I charged $50 for 4 hours worth of work. I know. Oh. That was literally, my money mindset was so low, and I almost just wanted to do it for free because I never felt worthy of charging more. And a lot of this came up in the coaching that I did, around telling myself that, well, even if I end up making a lot of money in my business, I'll lose it anyway. That was a belief that I had because of the environment I grew up in. Or, well, even if I can charge up to a certain point in my business or in my worth, it's not really true worth, because money and I didn't have a good relationship at all, and a lot of trust, trusting in myself, trusting in others, seeing my relationship with my parents, and just, okay, well, we know that your dad's like addicted to gambling, but let's not talk about it, like it's, let's just hide that. And it's, it's not something you ever do. And I was raised in a very Asian household. Culturally, you don't talk about the shameful things in your family because it brings a lot of shame on the name of our family. And all of this came from, I wasn't letting out my truth. I wasn't allowing myself to be truly authentic in my business,
Mm-hmm.
because I had this subconscious belief that it wasn't right to do that, or the world didn't have to know all of that about me. And it's, you know, it's better if you just show the good parts and don't show the dark side and the challenges and the shadow. So a lot of that manifested that way. And of course, that meant that I wasn't able to fully show up in my business, to fully call in my most aligned, perfect clients, to charge for my worth. And you and I have talked about even, you know, platforms, freelance platforms, where it feels like a form of slave labor, but also at the same time, it kind of boxes you into like what you can charge and people driving down your worth. It felt like I was doing that to myself without a third party platform doing it to me.
Right.
So yeah, that's where it all began.
That's a lot. I mean, did you get to the point, because having been there too, like for me, I just got very frustrated with myself, and I was just so angry with myself. And I was like, okay, like then therefore go ahead and look at all of this stuff, which everything you're saying is ringing through my brain. Like, yep, that sounds about right. How are you feeling at that point in time? Was it coming out like emotionally as stress or just anger, or?
Oh my gosh, it came out in such a rage. It was like this fiery energy, which literally like had to leave my body. Sounds really dramatic, but I ended up getting really sick when I was doing a lot of this spiritual work, like almost just because I was taking all of that pain out and facing it for the first time, really in my adulthood. I'd hidden it all through my late teens and up to my mid 20s. And so here I was like, okay, I've got to face this now. And I got a fever, like a really bad, like full head to toe shivers, fever for 5 days. I couldn't eat. I couldn't really sleep. I couldn't take any water. I couldn't have any of the blinds up. It was just full on migraine. And I was just shaking, just honestly just purging all of this out. And it felt surreal. It felt like I was literally going through an exorcism. I know that sounds so bizarre, but it was like this real out it comes. And then towards the end of this 5 days, I had lost a lot of weight, was severely dehydrated. I had so much clarity. You know, it was just, wow, like it just felt like a lightness. Something had been almost taken out from my internal like system. But the other thing that happened was I was doing some work at the time for a brand, and I was an influencer at one point representing a couple of big brands, and they wanted me to do a segment on TV to say certain words, and it was specifically about millennials and money. How interesting. And they wanted me to say this line, and I couldn't say it. It just didn't resonate with me, and it wasn't who I was and my brand, and yet I was paid to say it. I said it anyway. I got myself better after the fever. I said it anyway. I did the TV segment, and then literally that night, I lost my voice for 5 days. It was just like, what's going on? So it was 10 days of fever and then doing something that didn't feel into soul alignment. It was almost like the universe going, have you seriously not learnt? Really? And it's like, okay then, well, if you can't use your voice for what we've given you your voice for, and you know, going through all of this, then cool, let's just take it back a step once again. Lost my voice for 5 days, came back out of it, so grateful for my voice. Just, I don't know if any of you have ever lost your voice. It is really bizarre. Like, mouth is moving and you want to say something and nothing comes out. It's just like hollow. And I tell you what, ever since then, I've been so grateful for my voice. I use it every day with purpose and power and intention. And every now and again, I still get a real raspiness and a sore throat because of how extreme that sickness was. But I'm grateful for it. It's a reminder that I'm using my voice for good. So physically manifested in such a big way.
Wow. And as you were working with the spiritual coach at that point in time, were you also seeing a doctor, or were you like, could they give you anything like in this realm as to what was going on, or it was like purely energy, like old energy releasing?
Well, I went to the doctor, I crawled there. This is across the road, thank God. And they just said, oh, it looks like you've just been hit with a really bad flu. There's nothing we can do except if it gets worse, if you have it over 5 days, we need to get you on an IV drip because you're so dehydrated. And they put you on like Hydrolite and those sorts of things. Couldn't really do very much, but yeah, it was a real awakening. So there's something else, right? Like, lately I've been reading, not lately, when it first came out, I started reading about the symptoms of COVID-19. You know how like a lot of people now are starting to talk about it. There's YouTubers who got it and I've been watching their videos. So much of their symptoms was what I experienced 2 years ago. And there's a big almost connection point now. I guess those in the spiritual realm will say it's an awakening. It's almost like, you know, a real clarity that we're coming to as a society, and we're waking up and feeling more connected than ever. That is how I felt coming out of those 10 days of just feeling absolutely like going to hell and back, and then just having this whole newfound experience and seeing the world from a whole new lens. You know, I don't know how you explain that, but I'm like, wow, there it is.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that it's not possible. I mean, I've heard so many stories of people who are healers, and then they, you know, worked on someone, then all of a sudden they like absorbed all of that, and then they had like crazy sore throats too. Like, I feel like I've heard such similar stories.
Yeah.
Like, whether or not people want to believe it is up to them, but to me, we don't know. So for me, I'm actually curious because I don't always get to have this conversation with people. Like, some people I interact with would identify as spiritual and some would not at all. So for you, like, do you have any concretized beliefs? Are you just exploring everything, or how does that show up for you?
So yeah, I grew up in a very religious household and mixed religions. So my dad's family was very Buddhist and my mum's family was very Catholic. Now, when we migrated to Australia, I was 5 years old. They decided to change religions into Christianity. I don't know. I have to ask my parents like how that happened exactly. But so we ended up, you know, going to church every Sunday and Sunday school for me and youth groups and all those things. And it was my upbringing. I didn't really know anything else. Like, I grew up in also a private school environment where there was a lot of religion taught in the private school itself. So a very religious household. And when I left to go to university, I remember thinking to myself, do I actually believe in God? Do I actually believe in the Bible? Do I believe in these teachings that I have been taught for, you know, like 18 years of my life and absorbed somehow subconsciously? And I really started to explore that. And I went back to, you know, looking at Buddhism. And I was like, oh, my auntie, my favorite auntie in the world, lives in New York. And she used to always send me these beautiful quotes, like Taoism quotes and Buddhism quotes, but just real, you know, just eye-opening and so wise. You know, the quotes are so wise. And I was really drawn to it. I was like, wow. So I started looking at that. And then I started to look at astrology. I was really drawn to astrology, and I loved hearing about the different signs and the planetary movements. Then I started to move into crystals and understanding almost, you know, like the beautiful potions and oils that can be made, and sage and things like that. And then I started to move more into, you know, what is now, I suppose, more of a new age realm of spirituality. So things like even, you know, Akashic records readings, which I love, studying human design, doing chakra work, energy work, Reiki. Like it's interesting sort of even saying this out loud and hearing the journey, but spirituality has always been a very big ingredient in my life.
So does it show up now? Because I kind of know the answer to this, but could you tell us how it shows up now with respect to how you help your clients? Because do they all identify with that as well, or do you have to kind of test the waters with that?
Yeah, I'd say 90% of my clients come to me already loving the spiritual aspect and loving especially the journaling and the meditations. They really love that. I will have some clients who are curious but not in it. And they're very open to learning more about what I mean when I say things like, you can call it in, you can manifest, you can visualize, you can hold space. Like that's part of my languaging. And I don't even realize I say it sometimes, it just sort of comes out that way. And they'll just be like, what do you mean by trusting my intuition? Is that like trusting my gut? I'm like, yeah, so going into that and talking more about that connection and that feeling, or things like, what do you mean by connecting to soul? Is that just, feeling it in your heart? I'm like, yeah, well, so it's that journey that as we're building businesses and talking about cool things like LinkedIn strategy, I also couple that in with what is your soul telling you to do? Like what feels really great, because that's the magic.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's so beautiful. And I think it's so powerful really to tie in that other aspect, because it makes a big difference. I don't personally think that I could have done anything different than my 9-to-5 job if I didn't have faith in something. So I do wonder sometimes for people like how they do it without that. And I don't know if you've come to see most people that you end up working with do have an element of faith within something. Almost everybody that I know who started a business or who has taken off with their artwork has always had some sort of faith in God, universe, etc.
Yes, I think so. I think any form of entrepreneurship or a journey that you're going on to start a business is so linked to going on some sort of spiritual voyage, because you are really put in the position to ask so much of yourself. Yeah. Even things like, how do I write my Instagram bio? Like something as simple as that, you're asked to go inner. It's like, wow, I'm not just given a job title. I have to give myself a job title, and what feels good on me, and how do I talk about my work? So yeah, and I think it is that faith element that plays a big part in it. I've had clients who are, from a religious point of view, totally faithless, can we say that? And they, identify as, atheists, and they don't believe there's any real external energy out there. And I'm generalizing here, but there comes a point where they get frustrated and they don't know what they're frustrated at, but it just feels like a brick wall. They, and to a point, very successful in business, but it feels like there's a lack of connection energy, a greater purpose, that connection to why is just not there. So it feels like the narrative is halfway there, and then it sort of stops. And until they sort of get through that point where they have that moment where it's like, I don't think what I'm doing is what I'm meant to be doing. All of that snowballs out, and then their self-discovery begins.
Wow. So, that's so fascinating. Do you refer people in that point, like to a spiritual coach, but you're kind of also a spiritual, like, I don't know if you would delineate between the two, or do you have to kind of refer people to maybe your coach, or are you taking that on now as well?
A lot of what I do is so spiritual and it's so intertwined. I can't separate the two from each other. Sure. It's like, if you're working with me, we'll have the spiritual biz chats. And if you're saying to me, oh, I just don't know why I can't raise my prices, or I seem to be getting all the wrong clients and people who are super demanding, and it's not the freedom lifestyle I was calling in, it will always float back into, let's take a look at, your own self-reflection. So I will have some practices from a very spiritual point of view, like doing your mirror work and, looking at things from a from an inner child perspective and all of that stuff. But certainly if you want to go levels deeper into the esoteric, I would 100% recommend my spiritual coach. We still do work together once a month. She's almost like my shaman, like, you know, it's almost just like, I go to her and I'm just like, I need some alignment. And, you know, every month there's some sort of new theme that comes up, whether it's up leveling or not feeling worthy enough, but the things that circle and spiral back because we're humans. Out of my sessions with her, and we do sound therapy. She's got these big sound bowls, and she'll say a little, you know, prayer to the universe, and all of that. I come out just feeling so renewed. So yeah, I'm a really big believer in having that balance of spiritual and strategy, and including having a representation of both on your team as a CEO.
I'm curious now, because you mentioned like things that people might come to you for. Is there like common fears? Because I assume that actually between my own community and then your own clients, that there probably is very common fears that would prevent, for example, a writer from pursuing a professional writing career and a would-be coach from pursuing coaching. Is there common threads that you see amongst clients that you've been able to kind of tackle, maybe in group coaching or?
Yeah, there's one common thread that comes up a lot. And some of you will understand this intrinsically at the core and go, yes, that's me. And some of you will be like, what? That's a thing? So this fear is the fear of being seen. And it's the fear of being seen at scale. So I had a private client of mine. She's a business coach as well, startup business coach. And she said to me, Ruby, I'm getting so many more views on all my platforms, and I'm booking clients now with ease. And yet I have this feeling of, I just want to go back in my shell and just not be seen right now. And in fact, it's so scary that I kind of want to just pull down my platforms for a little bit so that I'm not continuously being seen, and that there isn't that momentum. Because what am I supposed to do if my business gets really big? And it's that fear of being seen at a certain level that she was saying it feels like she doesn't have all the right answers. And, you know, what if she attracts more trolls and more haters and that kind of thing, as well as how to scale out and feel like she's actually on top of everything. So that's a really big fear. The second one is perfectionism. So it's not good enough yet, so I'm not going to put myself out there yet. And even if I do put it out there, the fear is that someone's going to say it's not good enough. That comes up consistently.
The fear of judgment.
Fear of judgment.
Yeah, I think that's huge. I mean, whenever I would speak to like writers or people who have secret, so I actually know quite a few people who have like secret art profiles, and they won't tell anybody, but they'll have like a consumer profile, and then they have like another one, and they're like, oh yeah, like don't say this. Or like one of my friends confessed to me once that he writes, and I was like, oh, big secret. But it's kind of like, I think it's all that same stuff, and it kind of, I get it, but it also like makes me kind of sad because it can be pushed through or worked through perhaps more gracefully than pushed through. But how is it that you deal with people who come to you and say this? And what do you want?
Yeah. So with my perfectionists, my favorite mantra for them is practice makes progress. So if we take the perfect word out of it and we almost lessen that big old, like, you know, the peak that you want to get to, the mountain, and it's just taking that first step. It's breaking it down into really small bite-sized steps that helps you kind of take that aligned action. You know, it's like when you want to work out and you think, oh, I just really can't be bothered working out today. No. And you just push yourself to it and you go, let's just do 10 minutes, 5 minutes of stretching, maybe 5 minutes of a vinyasa flow, and I'm good. And then you get into it. Oh, maybe I can do another 10 minutes more. You know, so it's like that in business. I'm sure it's like that in writing. You know, it's like, oh, I don't know if I'm really in the mood to do a big writing session.
Absolutely.
So you just do the 10 minutes, see what happens. And then before you know it, you've written for an hour.
Absolutely. You must experience that yourself with all your writing too.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And then for my ladies, mostly ladies I work with who really are so fearful of the stage and being seen, that is absolutely inner child work. And where were you told that you weren't good enough, that you couldn't be seen? I've actually worked also with a lot of freelance writers as clients, and they said they started off on third-party platforms for their work because it felt like an easier entry into being seen but not being fully seen. And one of my clients said to me, she was told from a very young age that she wasn't a good writer. And so this platform kind of gave her that courageousness to just put herself out there, but then she couldn't exit out of it for many reasons, like psychologically, and she was connected to the platform, and how would she start her own thing and her own website? But, you know, so many of us, without realizing it, may have picked up something from school or your parents or friends who've told you you're not good enough to be seen, you're not good enough to play the major part at your school play, you're not good enough to be the sports captain. And we've picked that up thinking, no, like in life we can't be at the forefront, we weren't made for the spotlight. But this is where we get to say, if we were given a voice, a message, a talent, and something that is here to share with the world or to heal the world, you know, for a lot of you writers, what you put out there, you heal a lot of people. And, you know, your poetry and the things that you put out there, that is an elixir. Like, that is a healing like no other. And if you're not sharing that, well, then it's not putting your message and your why out there. So when you're coming from that place of, it's not about you at all. It's not about you at all. Your work is here to serve the thousands, the tens of thousands. It's about them. Things start to shift. You start to think about things from a different perspective.
Yeah, that's incredible. I don't know if you still have like 5 minutes. I still have like, oh my God, we ran through that real fast. I just want to ask, like, what about the people that say to you, like, well, I'm not really qualified to do X, Y, or Z. Sort of that imposter syndrome, saying like I hear all the time, like, well, I'm not a real writer, I'm just like an Instagram writer or something like that.
Yes. So I would say, and I get a lot of these as well, I would say that your talent is given to you for that reason. But also, you don't need to be 1,000 steps ahead of someone to call yourself anything special, right? So take me, for example. I said I was going to be a business coach one day, but I was going to just start coaching those that wanted to have a side hustle and eventually build enough of a brand that they could go all in. And I knew I could coach there because I side hustled for 3.5 years. So for some of you who are writing, secretly writing, maybe for the last 12 months, 18 months longer, probably since you were very, very young, but you just forgotten about it for a little bit, that in itself, for someone like me, I'd be looking at you going, wow, you know, you've been writing consistently for 1 to 2 years. You're 1 to 2 years more, you know, almost just like ahead of me. You don't need to be 5 or 10 years ahead of me. You don't need to have a New York bestseller to, you know, be a writing coach or to help people even just like write their message out to the world. I have some clients who are also, you know, English is their second language. They're from Europe, from Asia, and they would love to have someone on board who can just help take their message out there in the English language, for example. And you might be that very person who can do that. You don't need to have a huge portfolio. You just need to connect to their message and what they're here to share with the world. And your words become that very magnet for them to attract more clients. So, you know, there's so many ways that we can look at this, but you don't need to be 1,000 steps ahead. You know, was it Nelson Mandela who said, just take that first step, you know, when you're looking up? And it's just like, isn't that just so true? So if you're being called to starting a writing business or a creative business of some kind, sometimes it just begins by having a landing page with a contact me.
Oh.
And you don't know who's going to be there to contact you to say, oh, I'm actually looking for a writer. And that's it. That's how it all begins.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, okay. Can you tell people how they can learn more about you before I keep you like for the rest of your day? Because I could, because I think you're so helpful, and like, that's just like, you're so clear too, which is so good, because sometimes this stuff can get really heady, like, and it's like, oh, just believe in your work and, you know, everything will work, but you're very like tactical, which I think is so helpful. So yeah, if you can share. Yeah, like
I could speak to you for hours as well. Literally, I'm like, it's not enough time.
I know. I like, again, I mean, I have time, but like it's your start of your day, so I want to not put you behind with everything. So yeah, just your website, your Instagram, your LinkedIn, which I think is important for you because that's your big kahuna.
Yes, my big kahuna. So come and find me on LinkedIn, just search Ruby Lee. And if you want to be a part of the whole journey, come and listen to my podcast. And a lot of my listeners start from episode 1 and work their way up, because my podcast started 2 years ago when I was just starting my business. And I openly talk about all the failures and the F-ups and all the things. And also my spiritual transition is in there as well. So if you wanted to come along that journey, so my podcast is Own Your Hustle, and my Instagram is _RubyLee_, where I post on stories every day.
Yes, and you're incredible. And she's really, guys, like, she's the best energy. Whenever, if I'm like kind of like not fully awake or just like not fully there, I just like go to you or my friend Kate, and you're both like always on it. And I'm like, okay, now I'm good for the rest of the day.
It's amazing. It's we were talking about this on my podcast. So Mackenzie's on my podcast, and your podcast will be out very shortly. And maybe by the time you guys listen to this, but we were briefly touching on human design and how Mackenzie, you're a projector, and I'm a manifesting generator. And it's such a beautiful balance of both. Like whenever we speak, I draw from just you just have a zen, like you just beautiful, calm and zen. I'm sure a lot of you would agree. And it's just this like beautiful match of energies, which I think that's why we're so obsessed with each other.
I know. That's so true, human design wise, because we didn't even get into that, but like, again, we could have like 10 conversations, but like human design wise, you are like my perfect match, because you give me so much energy. And now it's like 7:45 p.m. and I shouldn't have energy, but I'm more amped now than I was a little bit ago, for sure.
And then I go to your page and just like see all your beautiful like poems and written work, and I'm like, okay, I'm calm, I'm back, I'm centered, I feel creative, I feel connected. You know, that's the energy I get from you. So it's been amazing. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you so much, honestly. Well, have a beautiful day, and I can't wait to just stalk you again tomorrow.
Yes. Thank you so much, my love.
Okay, thank you. Bye, love.
Bye.